Check. All right. Here we go. Sunday, October. Holy crap. Two more, well, October, November, and then December. So we only got 90 days to go to get out of 2020. It's Sunday night, as always. Going live. We're gonna let it rip. Hopefully, we got some topics here that will entertain and take a little load off. It's been a super weird week, and keeping with our Left Coast Love 2020 format, we're going to avoid all of that. If you're interested in what's going on in the world, check. You have other places to check. This week, we got a bunch of topics. We're going to be risking it all, people, risking it all. I want to talk about my dad lab. I spent my free time this week constructing a dad lab. Now that the home office is done, I needed another little project to go after. We're also spend some time tonight breaking down a couple of children's tales, both Humpty Dumpty and the Three Pigs. I think we're gonna take a little bit different look at those from a risk mitigation standpoint. What lessons can be gleaned from those stories. Plus, if you didn't know, I even have some little known facts about the origins of Humpty Dumpty. From there. Again, there's not a whole lot to do. We're still under majority. Stores are open, but you don't really go to hang out or anything. You go to get stuff and come back. So Parker and I are relegated to our coffee runs during the week. And for the most part, since I support the East Coast, I finished up a little bit earlier, and so Parker and I usually go out mid-afternoon for coffee. So that led to our discussion and what I'll call my get off the lawn segment this week. The Tic Tacs and other co-branded things are really starting to get on my nerves, but we'll get into that. Dunkin' Donuts. We went to Petaluma again. And that led us to Brian's Comics and another funny story that I'll share with some before and still before pictures. The payphone's back, so we'll post the number on Leftcoastlove2020, and if you're so inclined, give me a call on Stacy's new payphone. It's up and connected in the living room. So it's actually pretty funny when the payphone rings if people are over, if they haven't noticed it. And then last but not least, again, keeping everything light, Jackson, everyone's favorite, or at least our favorite dog, our buddy, got a haircut this week. And that's been an interesting journey, as have my haircut. So I'm just starting to recover from my last COVID cut. I also did try to clean up this week a little bit. I had a couple of comments. I was looking a little haggard last week, so I made sure I gave you guys a fresh shave and some good lighting if you happen to be watching on the YouTube channel. So why don't we get right to it? So this past week, I've spent some time after I finished work and Parker's doing her homework and reading, trying to find little projects to do. So the first one was to convert our guest room into a working home office, as well as a remote work, almost a studio, if you will. Obviously, I'm using the video equipment and the microphone over here. All of this stuff I also use for my job because everything I do is remote now. But Stacy, my wife's back to work during the day, so I have some free time on my hands. And I like to putter around, and typically I don't throw stuff away. I'll either recycle it or get rid of it on Craigslist or sell it on eBay. But I've accumulated over the past couple of years various pieces of computer equipment, peripherals, hard drives, cords, cables, all kinds of stuff in like 5 different boxes around the house. So what I did was grab an old HP tower that I had, and this tower is actually so old that the sticker on the front of it says Windows Vista. So this is this box is old. But these days, Microsoft and Windows 10, it'll upgrade pretty much any machine, and it installs it scans your system, and it takes a look at what the hardware is, and then it will install enough of Windows 10 to give you, again, depending on what the hardware is, a somewhat usable machine. And in this particular case, love the internet. I was able to take an old SD card and put it into one of the drives on the computer, and the system treats it as RAM, so I was able to update the RAM a little bit. And then when I applied the Windows 10 on top of it, lo and behold, it worked. The system came back to life again. Now, we're not going to be streaming video on this machine, and I have a USB, a little USB key that's actually in the front of it that it uses to pick up the Wi-Fi. And I want to say about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, it became apparent I really needed to update the network around the house. That the single router, Wi-Fi router out in the living room wasn't going to support Parker going to school all day, me being online all day, as well as now all the video options. So even 6 months ago, we weren't streaming as much content as we are today. So I looked at Xfinity as well as a couple of other mesh network options, and I have Xfinity, and they actually offer for a one-time fee, I think it was like $119, a set of 3 pods, they call them, and you connect them to the network, and once all 3 are connected, it actually creates a mesh network in your house. So it helps balance and give consistent connectivity throughout the entire house, all the way to the point where I have one out in the garage now. So you get a full 5 bars in the garage. So with that USB key, I'm able to connect the old tower, connect it to an old monitor, keyboard, camera. What else do we have on there? A small set of speakers. And lo and behold, it's good enough to be able to look at some internet pages, or if I'm working on a project in the garage, I can look something up or check my email. Again, I'm not going to be recording any of the podcasts or editing video on it, but for just a bare bones kind of internet machine from a bunch of pieces of equipment that weren't being used anyways, it's kind of cool. And our garage has a set of Metro shelves on wheels, so I was able to set up the monitor and the keyboard and kind of pull everything all together. Brought the old Epson printer out and set that up on the Metro shelves, and again, it's a Wi-Fi printer, so you can print from anywhere in the house, and it's not this big ugly printer in our dining room anymore. It's now kind of out of sight, out of mind. So once we had the PC set up and went through, like I said, the Windows 10, as long as your whatever system you're trying to upgrade, even if it's a Windows 98, as long as it's a legal OS, Microsoft will let you put a version of Windows 10. And you might be able to squeeze a few more years out of a machine. So a lot of fun. And now, like I said, I've actually used it a couple of times over the weekend to look up things while I continued to grab other pieces of equipment. So as I was pulling out all these old pieces of computer equipment, I also noticed there was some bits and pieces of a stereo, as well as another television out in the garage, and an old Apple TV. So went ahead and spun all that stuff together with an old receiver, an old sound bar, and an old TV and an Apple TV. And now I'm able to stream out in the garage. The one thing that was missing was actually a legitimate set of speakers to hook up from the receiver. I had the sound bar off of the TV, which does an okay job, but since I had the receiver, so I went on Craigslist, and oh my goodness, I found a set of Cambridge Audio or Cambridge Soundworks studio monitors. So they're fairly compact bookshelf speakers, but they have some weight to them, and they definitely push out the sound. It's crystal clear. And I believe back in the day, these were sold with a subwoofer, which is the next thing we'll be adding. I got to dig that out of a box next week, but they're usually sold with a subwoofer, and a lot of times they're called studio monitors because they do produce such true sound in such a small space. So in the studio, where back in the mixing room or where the consoles are, you don't have a lot of room for big excessive speakers. So a lot of times you'll see these small satellite speakers around in the mixing rooms. So found a digital out on the computer and an optic out out of the Apple TV, ran everything in, and now we we have everything. Dad can work. It's a standing desk, if you will, so I could even, if I need a little break in the day, I can pop open the garage door and head out and fire that up. Lately at night, we've had a bunch of heat. It's been a heat wave up here with temperatures over 100 degrees. We talked about it last week with the smoke. But at night, the breeze comes in and clears out the smoke and brings the temperature down. And we just pop open the garage door, and Stacy and I have been still working our way through The Sopranos, catching a couple of episodes outside with the breeze, plus Jackson, our dog, can run around in the driveway in the yard and stuff. And it's a socially distant open air space, so during the day I can we do have the masks. If you're looking on the YouTube channel, you can see on that little dresser there's a whole bunch of masks hanging off there, ready to go in if anybody decides to stop by. But I didn't really lose too much storage space, but now it created kind of a secondary fun space that I can use during the week, and just breaks up the monotony. As much as I enjoy hanging out in the office, after I want to say it's been 2 months now, every single day I get a little squirrely, so it gives me another place to go. Excuse me. To go and still have access to the internet and my music. The other nice thing is the computer has iTunes on it, and even though I don't store my music files here, since everything's on the same network, I can pull any of the music or movies off of our main system in the living room and play it out in the garage or now all of the rooms in the entire house. So the only thing that was missing, and I did this project primarily while my wife was at work during the day, and then just kind of swept up, and she didn't really notice the full effect until last night. Parker and I were at Bed Bath & Beyond, and I bought a specialty novelty light bulb. It's an LED disco bulb, and we have a picture. I have a picture of it. If you are looking at the notes from the show notes, and we hung that up. Parker and I hung that up in the rafters of the garage, and connected it to the garage door opener. So now when Stacy comes home at night and hits the garage door opener, it turns on a disco light in the garage. So that was our little bit of fun last night. The space has been dubbed the Dad Lab because now during the day. I like being out there because, like I said, I get to be outside when the weather's nice, and if the smoke or whatever is going on, then I just drop the garage door and head back into the house. So there you go. Next project. So the backyard's done, the office is done, the garage is done, and we decorated for Halloween out in front of the house. So I think I'm in shape. I'm gonna have to find something else to get after. So speaking of getting after, let's go on a tangent here. Let's take a look at Humpty Dumpty and the Three Pigs. And this came out. Why this topic this week? Why not? This came out of a conversation that Parker and I were having as we were driving up to Petaluma to go to Dunkin' Donuts, and we were trying to. She had asked me, what's the deal with Humpty Dumpty, and why is he an egg, and what is the point of the story, because he falls off the wall and can't be put back together again. So, what's the lesson we should glean from Humpty Dumpty? Ooh, excuse me. So I ran that up and I said, well, some of that we'll have to take a look at. But for me, I think what I would take away from that story is Humpty Dumpty had one plan. His plan was to get up on top of the wall. And once he got up on top of the wall, he didn't have any other plan. What was the backup plan? If he couldn't get to the top, or if he found himself in danger, what were the mitigations? What was the escape? He hadn't really thought it through. So in his rush to get to the top of the wall, he inadvertently fell off, and without any sort of risk mitigation or backup plan or safety protocols, he was done. So Parker shook her head and she was looking at me, and then she said, well, all right, so then what about the Three Pigs? So then we had to break that one down, and since we were already out on the risk mitigation tangent, I said, well, that's actually a better story about risk mitigation, because each of the pig assessed the situation and the relationship with the wolf differently, yet even the pig that built his house out of straw had a backup plan, and the pigs communicated and made themselves available to the other pigs when their initial plans didn't pan out. So what do I mean by all that? So each of the pigs understood the relationship with the wolf, and the wolf, the big bad wolf, had quite the set of lungs and was well known for huffing and puffing and blowing stuff down. So as the pigs were deciding how best to construct a home in this environment where the wolf also resided and protect themselves, right, risk, each of them came up with a different solution based upon whatever their risk mitigation strategy was and whatever calculation they were using. Now, in the case of the pigs, we had one of the pigs construct a house out of straw, we had another pig construct a house out of brick, and we had a third, the middle pig, if you will, constructed his house out of wood. Each of them, I suppose, suitable materials for a home wherever the pigs were living. And based upon their previous encounters with the wolf, each of them felt sufficiently safe with the materials that they were using to construct their homes. Now, obviously, the pig who had selected the bricks, he used a different calculation and perhaps put in a variable, or sandbagged as we call it, a buffer zone, a safety zone, to ensure that no matter how hard the wolf huffed and puffed, that he would not be able to move or create any kind of damage or risk to the brick structure. Now, the pig who had selected wood did the same calculation and decided that wood would be sufficient to deter or protect him from the wolf's bluster, and probably at a reduced cost. So that gave the pig some more spending money. And then the third pig selected straw, the cheapest and most abundant of all the materials to build a home. His calculation probably didn't assume that the wolf had much of an ability to move straw if it was put together in such a way that it made a home versus just being loose out in the field or whatever. But long story short here, even though the pig who lived in the straw house, his house was eventually destroyed by the wolf, since he was in this relationship with the other two pigs, and each of them seems to take care of each other and look out for their neighbors. That pig then went to the house of the pig that had constructed his home of wood. So he at least had a fallback plan. He could have selected more sturdy materials, but instead, his risk calculation included obviously falling back, if you will, to the pig that had the wooden house. And when that house eventually failed, both of those pigs were able to seek shelter and be protected from the wolf in the house that was constructed with bricks. So I think, at least for me, as Parker and I were working through this stuff, that each of them, there is this risk mitigation story or lesson to be learned. And, the pigs, even though two of the three plans were not successful, all of the pigs survived their ordeals with the wolf. And Humpty Dumpty, unfortunately, with his single vision, single-mindedness, created a situation from which he could not recover. Kind of sad if you think about it. Now, the first question, and my description here didn't have anything to do, doesn't answer that, but why the egg? So why is Humpty Dumpty often or always portrayed as an egg? Well, for that we had to do a little research. And what we found out was that Humpty Dumpty was actually originally a cannon. And the British king, one of the Georges, later Georges, had this cannon mounted on the top of a wall. And with the cannon on the top of the wall, it was able to shoot farther and inflict more damage on the enemy. But it also exposed the cannon, and because it was now sitting on top of a wall and very difficult to move, it itself became a target. So, as the story goes, that once the French got a hold of the coordinates or whatever and were able to zero in on Humpty Dumpty and basically knock out the wall that supported the cannon around it, the cannon then fell to the ground and was broken and not able to be repaired. So at least legend has it that that's the secret origin, if you will, of Humpty Dumpty. I know, riveting. Who knew? I'm sure some of you knew, but it was new news to us. All right. Get off the lawn time. While we were in the car, I always have some Tic Tacs. And when we were in Target, apparently Parker had bought some Tic Tacs and placed them in my car and offered them to me. And I wasn't paying attention, and when she handed them to me, all I noticed that they were, the typical white Tic Tac mint. I thought I saw some red markings on them, but I really wasn't paying attention. Popped them in my mouth. And what did I find out? They weren't mint flavored. They were Coca-Cola flavored. And then I was upset. So this is another one of these cases of, does everything have to be part of something else or crossed over or mashed up? Tic Tac was solid on its own. Coca-Cola is solid on its own. And I don't understand why now everything has to have some sort of cross promotional. It's a limited edition. And that got me going down the path of, well, it's not just Tic Tacs, and you know who actually started all this, which was the cereal people. They're the ones to blame with the crossovers to TV shows, movies, other foods, candy, all kinds of stuff. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but Oreos now come in every variety under the sun. And they even cross over with other candies and products. I have some pictures here of whipped cream, which used to be a treat unto itself. Cream, sugar, whip it up. It's a beautiful thing. Apparently that's not good enough anymore. We have to have Hershey's whipped cream, Reese's whipped cream, creme brulee whipped cream. And then even ice cream. So ice cream and cookies. So when I was a teenager, if you wanted ice cream and cookies, imagine this. We would go to the cupboard, take cookies out, crush them up, and put them in the ice cream. Pretty crazy, huh? We don't even need to do that anymore. These ice cream brands, they got Snickers, M&M's, Reese's Pieces, Chips Ahoy, Oreos, Heath bars, anything you can imagine inside of ice cream. And if I recall correctly, ice cream had a lot of just like ice cream kind of flavors. Baskin Robbins made a whole business out of 31 or 32 flavors of ice cream that were ice cream flavors, right? Rocky Road, it's an ice cream flavor. There's no Rocky Road coffee, Rocky Road cereal, Rocky Road candy bar, Rocky Road movie. It's just Rocky Road, pralines and cream. Butterscotch, Neapolitan. I mean, these are ice cream flavors. They had their own kind of jam, if you will. But now, if there's a way to cross promote it with a movie or some other product, it just feels like that's inundated everything. It's like it's almost overwhelming. I keep waiting for, Windex to cross over with the air fresheners. So if that actually happens, just remember here, October 4th, 2020. I put it out there first. So there you go. That's my get off the lawn rant. Enough already with the crossovers. Why don't you just make your products better or more interesting or come up with something unique for that? And speaking of unique, because this one trip to Petaluma just kept giving and giving. So if you're following along on the YouTube channel, you can take a look here. There's some pictures of my daughter, 2 with mask and 1 pre-corona. So like I said, we only have the 1 Dunkin' Donuts here. So unfortunately, that'll always be the same static shot. But since we were up in Petaluma, we decided to go visit Brian's Comics. So Petaluma has a small comic shop. And while it feels a little bit like cheating on James at Isotope, we were already up there and it was New Comic Day. So I felt like, maybe just being, because when I pick up my comics in San Francisco, I can't actually go in the store. I pick up my pull list, which are the books I subscribe to, if you will. But the days of kind of going in and taking a look at what's on the shelf and what covers are cool and things of that, you have to do your homework on the internet and then let the store know. So I can still get all the books, but that experience of being able to kind of take in all the fresh ink at once is gone. But Brian's comic shop, obviously, 3 customers at a time in the stores, masks, and the way he has his shelves laid out, you can see 99% of everything in the store without actually having to touch it and handle it. So I picked up some comics that I had missed over the past couple of weeks just because I hadn't noticed them. They're not, on my radar, but they had striking covers, or subsequently from listening to some podcasts, I was interested in them, and these were still on the shelf, so I was able to grab them. Now, in downtown Petaluma, it's actually an old It's one of these old-timey towns, if you will. They have a lot of the old downtown, and there is a mechanical horse, children's ride. You know, you put a quarter in and you can ride the horse. His name is Champion, I believe. And when my daughter was, I want to say about 4 or 5 years old, we were up in Petaluma with some of the folks I work with, and we were hanging out, and we walked by the mechanical horse, and Parker asked if she could ride the horse. And I turned around, and we did a little, public exhibition, if you will, and I looked down at her, and I said, no, you can't ride that horse. Look at it. It doesn't look safe. And why are you embarrassing me? We're out here with the adults, so just, hey, keep it up. You know what? Actually, you will never ride that horse. And Parker knew I was teasing her, but so she started playing along, and some of the people that were on the sidewalk took note, and we created a little bit of street theater, if you will. Now, it all worked out well, but the long story short was she actually did never ride the horse. And last week, since we were in Petaluma, we went down that same street, and lo and behold, there was Champion still outside. So keeping with the tradition of never riding the horse, instead we took another photograph of Parker outside of Ride Champion the horse. And we continued the tradition. We did text the folks that were with us that day, Jason and Justin, the two J's, to give them the update that indeed Parker returned to the scene of Champion, the mechanical horse, only to be denied one more time. So that's our Petaluma story. We're coming around the corner here. I have some updated photos here to show you. We have the payphone is up and it's in the house. It's wired up. It works. Costs 50 cents to make an outgoing call, and we can receive incoming calls. The new receiver looks great, and Mike from Mike's Vintage Telephones in Levittown, New York, we have to thank for this. It cost me some shipping and a couple of parts, but it is indeed a fully functioning, working payphone. I believe this is one of the late 90s, or not late 90s, mid 90s, early 90s models. And it's with my wife's history with Pac Bell and the phone company. It's a really nice addition to the living room. And the funny part is the upper right hand corner is all kind of dented and punched in a little bit. Not enough that it looks really bad, but if you look closely and if you think about it, it's so cliche. It's in the movies, and I'm sure if you're of my generation and remember the payphones, people would become frustrated and hit the receiver on that upper, since most people are right-handed, right? So the wear and tear on the phone was on the upper right-hand corner of the phone, as well as the top part of the old receiver. I was able to find a replacement part online. God bless you, internet. And a new old stock there. Yeah, new stock. So it was an actual replacement part for that model of phone, but it was still brand new in the box. So I had sent that out to Levittown for Mike's Vintage Telephones in Levittown, New York. In tonight's episode. I'll post the phone number at Leftcoastlove2020. So if you want to call the payphone, I invite you to, but you're going to have to work for it a little bit. I'm not just going to read the number here. So I'll take a little safety in that. Hopefully, if you're going to take the time and effort to go look up the phone number on the website, that you're not just going to torture us. All right. And then last but not least this week, our buddy Jackson, who's been suffering through the COVID haircut situation since the dog groomers were closed and could not even do private or appointment only. They couldn't come to our houses, excuse me, or they would run the risk of potentially losing their business licenses. Now, on our cul-de-sac, one of the families that lives down the way, the mom used to be a dog groomer, and she was able to do some light touch-ups on Jackson, which usually led to him getting his face trimmed and getting the hair out of his eyes and from around his mouth, but then the rest of him still continuing to shag out. So over time, he would end up looking like almost this like miniature sheep, if you will, because his body would be all puffed out with his fur, and then his head would be trimmed. Different set of clippers, but actually the same neighbor helped clean up my COVID cut a little bit. Hopefully not as scary as initially when it was first done. And it seems like Jackson has just got a much better attitude since he's got his haircut. It does take 10 years off him, so in the spirit of that, I also threw a fresh shave on tonight before coming to share my thoughts and feelings with you, Internet, to see if anyone's listening. All in all, a good week, a weird week, lots of weirdness going on, and I hope everybody that's listening has a great week. I will be updating and putting out the new Spotify playlist tomorrow, Monday, October 5th, and that'll be up on Left Coast Love 2020. So thank you all, and we'll bring it back to you next Sunday. Good night.